Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. One of the most famous stories in the Gospels is that of Martha and Mary. Jesus, visiting the home of Martha, was teaching while her sister Mary sat at his feet, absorbing his divine love and wisdom. Martha, meanwhile, busied herself with serving her guests and was upset with Mary for not helping her. "Lord," she cried, "doesn't it matter to you that my sister has left me to do all this serving alone? Please ask her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answered, "thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her." This story is classic, for Martha's complaint is very understandable and not, on the surface of it, spiritually wrong. Jesus may well have told Mary to get up and help her. We don't really know that he didn't, considerate as he always was of others' needs. But the teaching here doesn't concern the obvious dilemma of devotees, to work for God or to spend all one's time in prayer. It concerns, rather, the attitude of the mind. Jesus didn't tell Martha, "Martha, you're doing too much." He told her, rather, "You are letting your work affect your inner peace." That was the contrast, not work versus contemplation, but restless preoccupation versus peaceful absorption under all circumstances. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 2nd chapter, actions performed under the influence of desire are greatly inferior to those which are guided by wisdom. Happiness eludes people when they act from self-interest. Seek shelter, therefore, in the equanimity of wisdom. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day, Divine Mother's Day. I'm Santosh. I'm here with Bharati and Nayaswami's Mari and Hanuman to do service, and welcome to those of you online who are watching us from home. This is such a wonderful story because it's so relatable. You know, it's amazing how little people have changed over 2,000 years. You know, the story of Martha and Mary, it's very human. It's there's so much to it, and of course, I'll get into some of the message of the story. But being kind of a history buff, I like to look into a little bit about the circumstance of the situation. And one thing I learned, I never knew, but Martha and Mary were the sisters of Lazarus, who you probably know was risen from the dead by Jesus. And there are other parts of the Bible that talk about this relationship that the families had, actually, Jesus and the families of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And if you recall, or you may not recall, but Lazarus was on his deathbed, and Martha sent for Jesus to please come, sent out a messenger, and days went by and he didn't come. And in fact, by one account, he purposely decided, this can wait a few days. And in the meantime, Lazarus passed away, and Jesus eventually comes, and Martha goes out and scolds him and says, "Where were you? I sent you a message, and you didn't come, and my brother's dead." And basically, Jesus says to her, he will rise again. And she takes that to mean when we all rise again, and Revelations, when all the souls are lifted. And anyway, but he proceeds to actually raise him from the dead, and he walks out from behind the stone and is resurrected. But this shows like this family familiarity that I think might explain a little bit why Martha might be so comfortable in going to Jesus and saying, "Hey, can you get my sister to help me here?" You know, because imagine if this were not that kind of a friendship where you had this honored guest in your home, you probably wouldn't go to that honored guest and say, "Get my sister to help me." And Jesus probably wouldn't feel so comfortable in rebuking her, you know, and saying, you're too troubled about things. So I just like that context of kind of knowing the situation and really thinking of these people as friends and who had known each other maybe for many years. So I like that part of the story. When he tells her, one thing is needful, and that Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken from her. So what is that? And we talk about it, Swami talks about it in the writing a little bit, that it's not really an easy black and white, meditation is better than service. Because we know that we have to bring everything into our meditation. We have restless meditations, and we have restless work situations, and we also have peaceful, calm meditations, and we also have calm, centered experiences at work. So it's about kind of not an either or, but it's about bringing everything that we are into each experience that we have in life, whether it's serviceful, whether it's that outward energy that we're projecting but remaining calm and centered, or whether it's in that centered calmness that we remain focused and we remain calm all the time. Now, Martha could have been chopping vegetables in the kitchen, thinking about, oh, how beautiful these, look at the colors here, look at the aroma. I'm serving my friend and I'm serving the Christ here. And she recognized him as that. And how wonderful that I get to be here. And she could be flowing and exuding that kind of energy. In fact, some people say, and it is Mother's Day, but somehow we all have experiences where I've heard people talking about that you can taste the love in the food, like when your mother makes you your favorite dish or has made you something. Or you could taste like the quality of the experience of tasting a food that's made in a refined way, versus if you get a fast food sandwich or something, it may just not have that same vibration. And it's not even just the flavor, it's the energy that's put into it. So Martha could have been just totally in that center and producing this, but she got bent out of shape a little bit because she had this probably house full of people. It probably wasn't just Jesus, but you can imagine there was some entourage, I'm sure, and neighbors and friends, and this was a big event. This was kind of a big deal. Or Mary could have been sitting at his feet, and she could have been drumming her fingers like, well, where's Martha? And looking around and seeing who's there and who's not there and concerned about what people are wearing. So the shoes could have been on the other foot, and easily that could have happened. So it's about being calmly active and actively calm. That's a situation or an expression that we use pretty often here at Ananda. It's not how much we accomplish. It's not about what we're putting out in the way of our production and our output, but how much divine inspiration can we channel through ourselves to do that, and can we be a channel for? Swami Kriyananda once said, "I don't want it on my tombstone that he paid his dues." And he could be remembered and didn't want to be remembered for this long laundry list of accomplishments that he had, screenplays and books and music and all the things that he did, languages that he spoke. He saw his life really as being a disciple, that he was here to be an instrument and do all of those things in service, not to merely produce a book or a song, but to do it for a purpose. And all of them have meaning and deep meaning. Even our funny songs, the one that we just did, Mañana Friends, there's a deep message in there about being in the moment, and everything in life is fair, and realizing it, or else we suffer if we don't have that kind of an attitude. So his life could really be seen, and I think the lives of people who are living in that flow look at their life as the why of their life and not the what. They're looking at the how am I doing this and why am I doing this, not what am I accomplishing. Sometimes somebody can have a glowing resume. You may have encountered people you've worked with who are highly talented people, but they could be really difficult in many ways, right? They have all the qualifications, and yet they're just not the easiest person to be around. About 35, 40 years ago, Southwest Airlines became kind of this huge airline when it acquired PSA, Pacific Southwest in California, those of us that had lived there. They also just started buying up things, and they took off literally and figuratively, but they became such a success that they rattled the aviation world, and people started studying like what is the secret to their success. In addition to the low cost, which at that time was lower than a lot of the other ones, no frills, that kind of thing. But one thing that they learned was that, and I went over old chat boards from people saying, I've applied there 20 times and haven't heard back, I haven't been hired. And finally, one of the comments from one of the management there said that Southwest hires for attitude and trains for skills. They don't hire for skills, they hire for attitude. Because you can teach somebody something if they have the right attitude, but how do you unteach someone's attitude, like wrong attitude? So if you have that attitude of willingness, of teamwork, of cooperation, that's the kind of person that they were looking for. Someone who will grow into that job and have the right team player attitude, the right willingness to do whatever's asked and roll up their sleeves. So it's not about what we do, it's about our attitude, again, what we're doing. And in fact, even when you look back over some of your own jobs and your own encounters with people, often you're not going to remember the day in, day out nitty-gritty of what you did, but you're going to remember the relationships that you formed, the friendships, the exposure to other cultures, the things that you loved about the work, not necessarily the job, though hopefully you loved your job too, but it's often those other qualities that people are bringing into the workplace, which I think is kind of being lost these days with remote work. Having worked with others for so many years, being old school, it was a wonderful experience to work with other people and be exposed to all those different things that I think maybe is a little bit lacking nowadays. So we experience that growth, through our exposure to others, but also as a reminder that this is really why we're here. Like the output is important because we are doing a job, but how we're doing that and the result. And you can often tell, when you're frazzled, when you're in project mode, and the result may not be as productive or as positive as it would be if you were working from the inside out in a calm, centered way. So, and again, like the mother's food, like something that our mother would make for us, or something that an inspired chef would make for us. You can almost taste or feel like that vibration in what it is that they're doing. So the difference in quantity and quality of our output when we're stressed, frenzied, worried, rushed, or trying to impress often falls short. And I think that's what Jesus is also saying here is remain calm, everything will get done, and things will take care of themselves. And the fact that Mary is sitting here is the fact that she's doing the good work, or the good thing that he says, because she is remaining inward and focused. Even though she's not being so productive, she's got it right in what she's doing. The results are really vastly different when you're working from the inside out. And it's also about accepting kind of what's in front of us, because a lot of our conflict and a lot of our stress, in fact, Martha's stress, comes from not accepting the reality of her situation, that she's doing this by herself. And I think I may have told this story before, but I think it bears repeating, that a friend of mine who moved to Ananda many years ago had just moved to the village, was highly educated, and he's working in the publications building, and his job is to make copies. So he makes copies. The old-fashioned copy machine makes copies day after day, week after week, is resenting it, feels, I've got this education, why aren't they using me in a better way? And as time goes on, he's resenting it, but less so because he's starting to absorb the vibration of being at the village and learning from others and accepting his situation. And finally, he reaches the point where, yeah, I'm really okay with this. Well, very shortly after that, his supervisor comes in and says, I have another job for you. It's like he had to get to that point to break free of that that attachment that he had to identifying with his ego that I'm too good for this, and realize that it's not what I'm doing, it's what energy am I showing through this, and how much love can I channel into making this? How can I make the perfect copy because it's going to be serving so many people, or something along those things, those effect. So the lesson is to accept what's in front of us, and it doesn't matter what we're doing, it's how much God we can put into that work, in opening ourselves to that flow of inspiration. And there's really no limit to what we can do, because if we're holding on to this and thinking that I have to do this, that's exhausting, really. I mean, it's a real drain to think that we're doing this all by ourselves. So Ananda, from the beginning, has basically been based on two principles: one, service and devotion. They're not mutually exclusive. Service, or karma yoga, that was our affirmation today. It's about karma yoga, yoga meaning union through our action. So it's about seeking God through our service to others, through our activity. And so it is about finding union within ourselves, union with the divine. It's not just about action, but it's about doing it for that purpose, to be free. Same thing with devotion. It's not just about, it's about having that inward experience, but also, again, it's about seeking that experience of union through our meditation, through the devotional activities, the beautiful flowers on the altar, the healing prayers, all of those things, not about ego. So as we put these things into action, how do we really do this? How do we access this divine flow of grace? Well, whether you're a member of Ananda or not, or just visiting us today, being on any spiritual path, you're opening yourself up to allowing that flow of energy to come through and to work through you. By looking at the examples of saints like Mother Teresa, who said, do ordinary things with extraordinary love. So to her, it wasn't about the thing. It was about how much love can I infuse into this thing that I'm doing. By doing things every day to remind ourselves that we're not alone and that we can change the channel, tune out the social media, tune out the news, and direct ourselves towards uplifting people, places, and things. So our environment can be stronger than will. That's one of our other expressions. Environment is stronger than willpower. But little things like smiling at a stranger, opening a door for someone, silently praying for someone who's homeless in a tent on the sidewalk, by doing those ordinary things with extraordinary love. And these are not little things. These are not small things. These are huge, because they do impact the world, these little changes that we can make. Our challenge is to overcome what we want, what we believe. Even our habitual patterns and talents can kind of imprison us in a way, because we start to identify with these things that we're good at. We look at this as, well, I'm this. In fact, years ago in Japan, I don't know if this is still done, but I heard that one of the things that, I don't know if this was just men at that time, but when you met somebody, you automatically handed them your business card. And they would look at your card, and that they would automatically say, well, this is this person's name, this is their occupation. And it was a way to kind of pigeonhole that person, like, this is who I am. And that's like total identification with that person as whatever their job is, with their name, maybe ethnicity, if they could tell what region they're from by their name, whatever that is. It's a way to say, like, this is who I am. And then the person receiving it, okay, well, this is who this person is. And we know that it's hard to get to really know somebody, but that's kind of like the first thing that they used to do. Swami used to say, I'm not doing anything, God is doing it through me. So that's really the attitude that Jesus is talking about to Martha, is you're forgetting, the whole point here, which is to make sure that you allow God to work through you. But in doing this good work and avoiding over-identifying with our talents can really be a good thing and can be a challenge. And I can tell this story because David Gamow just wrote about it in his and his wife Anaya's book. But David Gamow's in Palo Alto, a very good friend of mine I've known for almost 30 years. And David is the manager of East West Bookstore now in Mountain View, but he came from the world of financial world and stocks and bonds, and very brilliant guy, and is a known organizer, and he's very astute at making things happen on the physical plane. He's good at it. Well, about 25 years ago, Swami, we were all there at the Crystal Hermitage, and Swami was in town, and he pulled David and his wife Anaya, who was Karen at that time, aside and said, I want you to go to Italy as part of a small choir tour. I think it would be a good idea for you, for about 6 or 8 of you to go and tour Italy. And they said, this came out of nowhere. It's like basically change your whole life for 6 months to a year. And they said yes. But as it got closer, David, of course, is thinking about all the arrangements that will have to be done and this and that, and all the stuff that he's really good at. Well, Swami made it a point to contact him and say, I don't want you to do any of the arrangements. I don't want you to do any of the driving or the arranging or any of this. Because he realized that David would go to that place of comfort and not really experience from the inside out the experience that he was meant to have on that choir tour. So he was forbidden from being involved in any of the administrative part. And he writes about it, but he also says that was like the best thing that could have happened, because he could just be in the moment as part of as a singer, as a participant, as someone sharing inspiration with other people. So that's the kind of thing that we want to do, to get ourselves out of this identification with what we're good at and look at ourselves more as, how can I just channel more divine energy through what I'm good at, hopefully, but in other ways, in all aspects of our life. So Swami was one of those people. He would often say, I'm not doing anything. God is doing it through me. And he wrote over 400 pieces of music. He wrote 150 books. He spoke Bengali, Italian, English, French. He spoke of many things. He lectured throughout the world. And he loved to share that inspiration with us. And it's kind of our tradition here at Ananda when we have someone visiting here, and we've had a lot of visitors in the last year, but there will often be kind of an informal satsang, with that person. They're often here to teach a class, but they're always here. And one of the things we always are so interested to know is, well, what's going on in Assisi right now, or what's going on in Seattle, or fill us in, bring us up to date. And we just kind of sit there and absorb all that, and we're happy to hear what's happening in our world. Well, when Swami would come through, he would, again, he would usually have a formal talk, but he would often have a satsang. It's like, well, what have you been up to the last year? And he even well into his 80s, he would come and he would talk and he would mention, well, I'm working on this screenplay and I've rewritten this book and I'm editing this and I've written this piece. And this thing that it would be unbelievable. And he was so frail physically that it would be like, what? You're really doing that? But he would say it almost like in a giddy, in a joyful way, not like this is what I'm doing, but look what God can do through any of us, and at this age with this frail body. And we would just sit there and just kind of be chuckling and smiling. It's like, whoa, here's more. And he did this until he passed away. I think except for those last few months, he was busy writing, working on there were a couple films that were coming out. There was one last piece of music. Always things that were being done. So his point was, I'm not doing any of this. I'm putting my attention here, and then I'm getting out of the way. Basically, that's kind of what he taught us. So the secret of right action is to learn from the saints and the masters, to learn from their attunement and oneness with God as our examples. And Swami once said, too, it is important to serve. It's important to serve and be devotional and to bring both of those into everything. But Swami once said that he saw in people who performed service to others, quote, a dynamic energy and a light that I don't see in other people who only meditate. So not that meditation isn't important, but indeed, Ananda is based on the two principles of service and devotion. So always remind yourself in quiet times, as well as times of great activity, that you can tap into this flow whenever you need it, whether you're building a building, visiting a friend, being on a choir tour, making copies, writing books or music, or hosting a crowd of VIPs in your own home, or having a dinner party, that there's a right way for each of us to express our own unique gifts and talents, even made even more dynamic and meaningful as we remember to use that universal flow that's always there for us and tap into that. That is the right way, as Jesus told Martha, to go about all of our activities, and we're more and more active now than we've ever been. So blessings to you all, and I'm going to end with a reading from Whispers from Eternity by Paramhansa Yogananda, his book of prayers and prayer demands. This is number 133. Demand for quickening activity. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity. As thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Thou art ever busy, yet eternally smiling in joyous hearts. Bless me that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life. Om, peace, amen. Have some music.
In this case, we're hoping you'll join us for this song. I will always think of thee. You can find the lyrics on, let's see, page, I don't know what page, but it's number 34 in your jam book. I will always think of thee.